Well, hello again. This is Father Fish. I'm following up on a video we just completed explaining Diana Wallstead's planted aquarium, dirted aquarium. In that video, we described two issues that remain at the end of the book essentially unresolved. One is the effect of anaerobic soil on the water column. The second is the duration of nutritional value in the substrate, which she restricted or limited to approximately 1 year. So those are the issues that we took up as we began to apply the techniques and the research that Diana Wallstead provides us. We started this process a little more than 10 years ago, nearly 15 years ago, before the final draft of her book was published. The third issue does not differentiate in any significant way from the first two. The content varies minimally based on graphics, charts, and pictures. Other than that, the content itself remains as it was published in 1999. This makes the book somewhat aged. However, the application of the dirted tank has been so slow in being taken up that it remains even today, 20 years later, controversial and minimally applied throughout the industry. The reasons for this are very simple. The industry is driven primarily by mercantilists, by manufacturers and retailers. There is very little required of a manufactured nature to do a dirted tank. Very little indeed. Some dirt, some soil, some sand, some additives, and that about lets it out. There's nothing mechanical needed particularly. There's nothing that the water needs to be treated with other than the removal of chlorine. There's really very little of that's economically driven or fiscally driven that would cause a manufacturer or a retailer to promote this system. So it remains up to the hobbyist to promote the system. I do not use gravel. In fact, I really oppose the use of gravel simply because water flows through it too quickly. And here's the issue. The problem she discovered in the book, that the book left unresolved, was the issue of anaerobics and the difficulty of maintaining an anaerobic environment in the water column. Without this sand, the dirt is exposed to the water. If you have a little gravel covering it, just enough to hold the dirt down, the dirt is still exposed to the water. The sand reduces water flow into that substrate, sufficient to essentially stop the flow of water at about 2 inches deep. At that level, it becomes anaerobic. Anything below that 2 inches is anaerobic. Now, one of the complaints about this system is that it takes a very long time for detritus, for waste, to precipitate into the sand and to flow down in it into the substrate. And that is absolutely true. It takes at least a year for the mulch that, or the mulm that precipitates into the sand to reach the bottom, to reach into the substrate, to get down into that lower level. At least a year. That means if your tank is set up for more than a year, the mulm and waste that was put in there originally is flowing through and reaching the substrate. By 2 years, it's inculcated into the substrate. By 3 years, you have substrate breaking down and that environment becoming a richer and stronger one. Now, the next phase of this to understand is the function of plants. And the plants are the key. They're the key to the whole system. They're the reason the system exists, to create an environment in which plants can grow. When I put plants into this brand new system, I do not push them all the way down into the dirt. If I did that, the roots would burn off. It's much too intense, much too powerful, much too raw for the plants to be able to survive. I put the plants 1 inch into the sand, the roots of the plants. The roots then can grow, can spread, can reach out, can find nutrition, can get down close to that dirt layer and begin taking up nutrition. In the process of doing that, the roots are also aerating. They're moving things around. They're creating anaerobics, because that's what roots do. They create anaerobics. And so by over a period of time, by them getting deeper and by this soil sand system assimilating and breaking down and becoming more gentle and becoming richer, the roots are able to take up more nutrition. But it takes time. It takes a long time. It takes a year, 2 years, 3 years. By the time this tank is 3 to 4 years old, I've got a couple of them. One is over here, the tank that we're seeing cutting across, that has the peacocks in it. That tank has been set up for 10 years. It has at least 10 inches of sand. Now, I did not put soil in the bottom of that tank. I created it for very large fish, initially Central American cichlids, that were tearing things up. So I didn't try to put dirt in. Now, 10 years later, you can see the strata of soil as it's developed through the years of waste and mulm product going down into it, such that these plants, aside from them being chewed up by the fish, because some of them are, the plants do very well in it. And more importantly, the tank stays balanced. We have a filter in it that cycles the water and does pull out a certain amount of waste, but we have never gone in and stirred up this bottom or changed it or made any significant change to it in 10 years. Similarly with the tank behind me. This is a 200 gallon with about 8 inches of substrate. This tank has been set up similarly for 10 years. All the plants that are in it are growing, and frankly, they're growing like weeds. They grow at a faster rate today than they did when in the first few years of the tank's life. We have all manner of fish in it. These are all more gentle fish. They're South American cichlids as opposed to Central Americans. We also include some Africans such as credensis, some of the Tanganyikas in this tank as well. There are some sharks you'll see. So a good variety of fish. We have discus, angels, severum, rams, a variety of fish in here. The tank never gets water changed. I shouldn't say never. About once a year we do a 50% water change. This is very hard, very alkaline water. It runs 80 pH with a hardness of above 250 ppm. So it's very hard, very alkaline water, and extraordinarily stable. We do not lose fish in it. We do not, and this is the third item, even for a tank like this, we rarely feed the fish, except for the bigger ones. The little fish don't get fed. Let's look for a moment behind me at some of these tanks. And we'll just, if you want to just kind of pan down them, Thomas, and we'll just take a look at them. These are tanks that were set up again about 8 years ago with dirt and sand. They have never been changed. It's never been cleaned. The only thing we've ever done is put plants in. And we sell plants out of these. We also sell fish out of these. So plants and fish are kind of moving through these tanks. The substrate is sufficient, however, to maintain the health of the system. We've got probably 100 tanks like this set up. Some of them are on open systems with a sump in the back that's doing water changes, so they're really a much larger volume of water. But we also have a number of tanks that are separate on their own, standalone tanks with the same system set up. So that's about it for now. I did want to say one more thing about food. The little fish in these tanks rarely, if ever, get fed. The tank produces enough life, enough food in the form of algae and microscopic animal life, microscopic fauna, that the little fish are able to feed on it. So it's a genuinely balanced environment, which is providing resources for every living thing in it. Well, thank you for tuning in today. Thank you for hanging in. Thank you again. See you on YouTube. Bye-bye.